Hey, what's up? This is Khaliq Glover, and I'm also known as Khaliq-O-Vision. And I wanted to give you some real quick tips because I get asked certain questions all the time. So I figured I'd do a quick little video for you and answer these things. One of the things that I always get hit with was, Khaliq, I'm a complete beginner. So where do I start, man? I have no clue. What do I start with? Where do I start? So I'm going to give you a few tips that can put you on I think, a good path to getting a solid foundation. So one of the first things I would say to do, first of all, is start out with clarity about what it is that you want to do. You've got to understand exactly what is my end goal. Do I want to be an audio engineer? I'm an audio engineer, but I also started out as a musician. Do you want to be an audio engineer specifically? Do you want to be a producer that knows a little audio engineering? Do you want to be a songwriter that knows a little audio engineering but doesn't really want to get in, wants to be able to hand that off? Or you the same thing with a musician? Or do you want to be all in like me? I ended up being all in even though I started out as a musician. So you got to get very clear with what your end game is going to be. And then that'll lead us to the next step, which is get the best gear for that goal that you chose. Now, what I mean by that, I mean, when I say the gear, I don't mean you have to go out and spend a ton of money, but spend it in the right place. You need to have a solid computer because everything's computer based now. And then depending on what your final goal was, you got to get the right software to get you in the game and keep you in the game and give you that edge. Now, the software that I would suggest, if you're going to be an engineer, for example, pure engineer, you want to do projects for other clients as an engineer and everything, then I would say invest in getting Pro Tools. Now, you don't have to get the fully blown Pro Tools, but get in the game with whatever way you can with whatever entry level that you can get started with, and then build upon that. Start out with some kind of native system and build up to the things you need, but get in the game with Pro Tools. That is the tool for audio engineers that are working for other people out there. And I say that because even though there's a lot of DAWs out there that can do the task, do just as well as Pro Tools, and vice versa, Pro Tools can do just as well as them. Pro Tools is the tool. If you're going to build a house or whatever, you need hammers and nails and things like that. And it doesn't matter the brand, the bottom line, it's still a hammer. Pro Tools is the hammer in our industry for an engineer. So you need to have that in your toolkit. Now, conversely, this is why I say step number one was so important. If you are going to be a producer, or if you're going to be a musician, producer, songwriter, whatever, that wants to have a little bit of engineering skills, but that's not going to be your primary thing. You just kind of want to get your music created, and then you're going to hand it off to somebody with better skills, but you want to understand it. So I would say get the tools like get Logic, or get what I really highly recommend is PreSonus Studio One. Get PreSonus' Studio One DAW. I think that is for creative people from a company that is really musician centric. So they get it from the creation part. It's not a corporate type of thing and all that. These folks get it and they're fully supported. I can't recommend Studio One highly enough. If you're on the creative side and you want to be a producer, musician, songwriter, whatever, I would highly recommend Studio One. Now, Pro Tools can do all this, and there's a lot of other tools that are out there, Logic and all those as well, and tools on the PC. But to me, Studio One just has it all because it still has the same power once you get down there after you've got it created for mixing and mastering the whole deal all the way through with a lot of bells and whistles that I haven't even had a chance to touch on yet. It is so powerful. It is really that good. So anyway, that gets me to number three. Once you've got, you're clear on what kind of person you're going to be and you know what you're going to do, go ahead and learn basically. I'm really surprised that a lot of people don't know this. Signal flow. Know how your signals are flowing, getting into and out of things. I'm really surprised how many people just plug stuff in, but they have no idea why the things are working the way they're doing and what's happening. Why, when you're going through a process, At what point is it analog and then converted to digital? Because it always ends up in our computer. So that means it had to be converted to digital at some point. So you need to understand at what points, what took it from like a sound coming out of my mouth, going through an analog device to capture like a microphone, down a wire or wireless if you're using that, whatever, but down a wire, being plugged into something that has to electrify and amplify that signal and boost it up, and then take it through some other things and any processing, conversions, things like that. Understand what's happening in each stage so that you can build on it or troubleshoot it if a problem happens. If you know where things are happening in each stage of the process, by really knowing what's happening with your signal flow, it'll help you in so many ways that you won't even imagine. And also after that, the next step I would say is to learn. Now this is very basic, but I actually skipped over this part. Everybody wants to get to the good stuff first, you know. So when I first started trying to record and mix and all that, the first thing I wanted to do was start putting stuff on stuff, you know, EQs, compressors, effects, all that stuff. But I ended up rewinding and going back to a basic thing that I found out that once I started mastering this, it really made everything else a lot easier, and I had to do less. That's master leveling and balancing and panning. You know, just get a hold on getting something really balanced and get stuff in the right panorama of the sound stage where there's power without having all the other stuff. Now, I'm not saying don't use the other things at all, but what I'm saying is spend a little more time than you might think you have to and practice handcuffing yourself to see if you can get something sounding really good and pumping with just using your balances and your panning. Just turn up your levels of different things. Try different things. Try some things louder. Try some things softer. Different things being taking the lead and falling back. Pushing the kick here and say, okay, let me see what happens if I pull the kick back and push the snare ahead. What does it do to the groove and things like that? Really listening to these things allows you to really get more power out of a song faster and more just more effective than if you skip over this step. Okay, and then finally I would say learn like maybe 3 to 5, no more than 5 plugins to begin with. Learn them really well, just super well, as good as you can, because if you learn those 3 to 5 and master them, and I would suggest you learn at least the 3 or 4 stock plugins that come with whatever system you get. Pro Tools, Studio One, whatever, they all come with great plugins. And I'd say learn 3 or 4 basic ones that you know you're going to need all the time. An EQ, compressor, you know, and a basic effect, you know, a reverb and a delay. I'd say those 4 things are good categories. An EQ, a compressor, a reverb, and a delay will get you through most things. Learn them really well in the stock plugins so that if you ever have to do something and somebody doesn't have the same thing you have and you can't take your system with you, you can make do with a bare minimum system. You could even do something you've heard about people doing final mixes on planes. People that master this can do it with stock plugins on a laptop on a plane flying from one city to another. It can get you a mix that sounds really good. Okay, so that's my advice right there. If you do those things, they'll keep you on point. I've got some other tips for you that I'll see you with shortly. So this is the first one. If you're a complete beginner and you want to know where to start, that's a good way to get going. This is Khaliq Glover, and I'll catch you later on the next one. Bye. Oh, by the way, go to mixingacademy.com and you'll get more of these. Thanks.